John Joseph Gotti Jr., born October 27, 1940. He grew up in the South Bronx, one of 13 children, his parents barely scraping by. On the streets of the South Bronx, everybody knew about the mob, the well-dressed men flashing wads of bills and driving expensive cars. Young Gotti gazed at them with the same eyes as Carlo and Paul had done when they were boys.
John Gotti was drawn to the mob for the same reasons that everybody else is. The chance to make a quick, easy dollar, the influence, the power, the clout, you know, driving the big-ass Cadillacs that all the other guys did around that time.
Growing up on the streets, John ran with the gangs, staking out turf in the neighborhood. A natural thug, John was soon running his own gang.
John Gotti was a tough guy. He was good with his fists. He was also a charismatic, born leader type. Even as a youngster, kids followed him, and he could get people to do what he wanted. He knew the buttons to push.
John and his friends hung around a mafia social club in Brooklyn run by Carmine Fatigo, a capo first for Albert Anastasia and later for Carlo Gambino. From Carmine, John learned the coarse language of the mob.
The guy had the vocabulary of a sailor. No imagination at all. Every other word was F, or MF, or CS. I mean, it was incredible. He's a moron.
John set out to impress the wise guys by stealing. Once, when roaming the streets of Brooklyn, 14-year-old Gotti and his buddies tried stealing a cement mixer. When the mixer tipped over, it fell on John's left foot, crushing it. After that, he walked with a bounce.
It was one of those interesting characteristics of John Gotti that was not a put-on, not an act. He liked to carry himself with flair and with dignity, but that little special bounce that he had in his walk had to do with the incident back when he was a 14 or 15-year-old.
In 1956, John dropped out of Franklin K. Lane High School, taking with him a sizable chunk of his classmates' lunch money, which he had earned as a class bookie. John got a job as a coat presser and began building upon his criminal resume. At 17, arrested for stealing copper from a construction firm. He pleaded guilty and got probation. At 20, a 60-day suspended sentence for disorderly conduct. In 1960, he met and fell in love with the daughter of a Jewish sanitation worker, Victoria DiGiorgio. Vicky and John got engaged. They were both short-tempered and called it off several times before getting married in March 1962. The couple had 5 children and eventually settled into the Howard Beach section of Queens. Shortly after the wedding, John took a job as a trucker's assistant, but his paycheck didn't cover his frequent nights on the town gambling. Gotti resorted to stealing cars to make ends meet, but the law caught up with him in 1965, and this time, Gotti was sent to prison. With John behind bars and no money coming in, Vicky Gotti went on welfare.
Many people would look at that as an act of weakness while she went on welfare. A lot of other people would look at that as an act of a strong woman sending a signal. Hey, if you guys won't take care of me, you know, I'll take care of it. And, you know, not in a way that, that will make anybody look very good here.
When he was released from prison in 1966, Gotti desperately needed money to support his family. So he turned to a sure thing, hijacking trucks. His hunting ground, JFK Airport in Queens. But Gotti was not too successful in eluding the law. Along with his brother Gene and his best friend Angelo Ruggiero, he was soon arrested. He was sentenced to nearly 3 years in the maximum security federal prison in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. John got out in 1972. He went back to Carmine Fatigo's crew, now operating out of the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Ozone Park in Queens. The wise guys at the club called Gotti Johnny Boy.
Gotti presented himself like a man that's been around, you know. Guy that you don't want to mess around with, you know, but he also was very gentle and good-natured, and you know, he'd sit around playing cards.
Gotti's passion for gambling qualified him to run Fatigo's gambling operations, which controlled a few small illegal casinos in Queens. if anyone failed to pay their debts to Fatigo, Johnny Boy roughed them up. Gotti quickly built a reputation as a tough guy and a valuable soldier. So valuable that John was appointed acting capo of the Bergen crew. Gotti was just 31 and not even a full-fledged made man in the mafia.
It was John Gotti's goal to be boss of the crime family back when he was running a teenage gang back in the 1950s.
As acting capo, John reported directly to Gambino underboss Neil Della Croce.
Della Croce took care of him. Della Croce's relationship with Gotti was like a father and son as opposed to a subordinate to a boss.